Ravens have 2 head coaching interviews scheduled today. They have another one on Sunday. They have a bunch lined up for next week. We'll discuss and take a look at the backgrounds of each coach that they have scheduled for an interview so far. Mike McDaniel was surprisingly fired from the Dolphins today, who are now allegedly in on John Harbaugh, but Mike McDaniel now becomes a prime offensive coordinator option. And we'll also take a look at the Ravens' official 2026 opponents. All that and more in today's episode of the Flock Rundown.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. So the Ravens head coaching interviews are in full swing. They have a ton of requests lined up. It's going to start with Zoom interviews first, so they're probably going to interview a ton of guys, cast a very wide net. They're all over the place right now. It's not just offensive guys or defensive guys. It's everybody, and then they'll bring back who they like in person for a second interview. But as of right now, the Ravens have scheduled for today Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph and Broncos quarterbacks coach Davis Webb. Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph is interviewing this morning, and Broncos quarterbacks coach Davis Webb is interviewing this afternoon. We'll start with Joseph. He's 53, defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, who have one of the top defenses in the NFL this year. The Broncos also secured the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Broncos ranked number 2 defensively under Joseph. Joseph was Denver's head coach for 2 seasons in 2017 and 2018. He had an 11-21 record. Davis Webb, the Broncos quarterbacks coach, is interviewing this afternoon. He's only 30 years old, but is a rising star in the coaching profession. 3rd round pick in 2017. Webb only played in 2 career games and made 1 start, but was such an impressive football student and leader that when he was still on the team as the 3rd string quarterback, the Bills offered him the job of being Josh Allen's quarterbacks coach. Webb turned it down to play 1 more year, but he immediately jumped into coaching after retiring in 2022. Webb was hired as Denver Broncos quarterbacks coach in 2023, working for Sean Payton. After 2 seasons, Webb was promoted to offensive pass game coordinator, working with quarterback Bo Nix, who has quickly become one of the NFL's top young quarterbacks. The Ravens also are interviewing Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy this Sunday. Matt Nagy is 47 in his 2nd stint in Kansas City, serving as the Chiefs offensive coordinator for the past 3 years. Working under Andy Reid and alongside Patrick Mahomes, Nagy helped Kansas City win 2 Super Bowls. Nagy was previously with the Chiefs from 2013 to 2017, which earned him a head coaching job with the Chicago Bears. He was the Bears head coach for 4 years, 2018 to 2021. The Bears won 1 NFC North title and went 34-33. One hot name that a lot of people are excited about on the defensive side is Brian Flores, and the Ravens have officially put in a request to interview Brian Flores as well. Flores is 44, has led the Vikings to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. His defense continues to challenge offenses across the league and has for years. Despite not even having a Pro Bowl player on the Vikings defense, they finished 3rd in the league in yards allowed. Flores is a former head coach who went 24-25 in his 3 seasons in Miami. Flores also was an assistant under Bill Belichick in New England for a decade, from 2008 to 2018. New year, big goals, busy schedule. I don't always have time to cook. That's why Factor makes my life so much easier. These are fully prepared meals designed by dietitians, made by chefs, so you're eating real food without the shopping, cooking, or cleanup. But what I like most is what's inside the meals. Quality ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, healthy fats, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no seed oils. It actually fits how I eat. They've got over 100 rotating meals weekly, whether you want high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, or even ready to eat salads. Lately, my go-to is the grilled filet mignon and creamy Parmesan shrimp. Everything comes fresh, never frozen, and it's ready in about 2 minutes. No prep, no stress. I use Factor, and you guys should too. Just head to factormeals.com/flock50off and use code flock50off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. Another big name on the offensive side of the ball that the Ravens have also requested to interview is Seahawks offensive coordinator Klint Kubiak. Kubiak is currently working under Ravens former defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald. He's only 38 years old and has led the Seahawks to one of the most explosive offenses in the league this year. Has helped Sam Darnold earn a Pro Bowl this year, and wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba led the league in receiving yards. Seattle ranks 8th in the league in yards and 3rd in points per game. Kubiak is the son of former Ravens offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak, who had a highly successful one-year stint in Baltimore in 2014. Klint Kubiak has coached for 5 different teams over the past 5 years with offensive coordinator stops in Minnesota and New Orleans. Ravens also bringing back a familiar face for an interview, and that is Dolphins defensive coordinator, former Ravens defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. Weaver has been with the Ravens as a player and coach. He's been with the Miami Dolphins for the last 2 years as their defensive coordinator, but has extensive experience in the Ravens organization. He spent 3 seasons, 2021 to 2023, on the Ravens staff, joining them as a defensive line coach and run game coordinator for 1 season before being elevated to assistant head coach and defensive line coach. Out of these early names and early interviews that the Ravens have set up, the 2 that really stick out to me, and I know they're on different sides of the ball, but Klint Kubiak on offense and Brian Flores on defense are names that stick out to me out of this group. I think Klint Kubiak is a great young offensive mind and could do some special things with Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense. And I've said before, there's an edge to having a smart offensive mind as your head coach, because if things do work out, and hopefully they do, obviously we don't want the Ravens to regress after moving on from Harbaugh. So if things do elevate like we expect them to, and the Ravens offense is more successful and Lamar Jackson's happy and everything's rolling, you don't want to lose that coordinator, and that will happen over and over again if there's success. So having an offensive-minded head coach that can build and stay with Lamar, ensures that there's consistency and stability there from a play-calling standpoint, an offensive design and scheme standpoint, and just someone that Lamar trusts and loves and can grow with and take his game to an even higher level, which is crazy to say, but we all know that we can go to a higher level offensively. So that's my kind of pitch for having an offensive coordinator, is you don't lose them if they become your head coach. If you have a defensive-minded head coach and you are hiring an offensive coordinator, if the Ravens are having a ton of success, that offensive coordinator is going to leave in 2 seasons and be on another team as their head coach. But I also completely see the argument for a guy like Brian Flores. I feel like he embodies defense and what Baltimore's tradition is. And, we could hire an offensive coordinator and still have a great offense. There's a risk that they leave. But there's an argument to say that we need defensive stability too and need to get back to playing Baltimore Ravens defense, because I would argue that our defense is further away than our offense is. With Lamar, I think that offense is going to be pretty lethal regardless. Obviously, we want a smart mind to come in and take it to another level, but I really think the defense seems to be further away from being consistent and playing dominant Ravens football. So I think that getting a guy like Brian Flores, not only a leader that can relate to the players and kind of get everybody in shape, this is going to be an incredible defensive mind. But then we would need to hire an offensive coordinator, and one was just fired today. The Dolphins, surprisingly, after they said they weren't going to, they fired Mike McDaniels, and that is a top offensive coordinator now available. I don't know if he's going to be a hot head coach commodity, but he is definitely going to be at the top of the list of offensive coordinators in the NFL. So that is an option that opened up. So there's a ton of moving parts, a ton of interviews going on. I think the Ravens are just trying to talk to everyone via Zoom first, get a feel for, who stands out, who really shocks them in these interviews, and they will start to bring guys in for in-person interviews and narrow this search down over the next few weeks. And I would expect the Ravens do have a coach within the next month, but you never know. We'll see how it plays out. It's definitely uncharted times in Baltimore. It's weird to see, all these guys coming in, but it feels refreshing. I'm like, okay, which direction are we going in? And I really really see the argument for both sides. I'm going to just trust Steve Bisciotti here that we make the right decisions because, you know, there is a real argument for getting the defense back to where it needs to be, but also having an offensive-minded head coach that can grow with Lamar. I think as long as we have a coach that understands football at a very high level, whether that is on the defensive or offensive side, and can build out a full staff, we'll be in a good spot because the roster's talented. As long as Eric DeCosta attacks the trenches this offseason, I think that the Ravens should progress from this year. You know, we didn't even make the playoffs. We finished 8-9, so not a huge challenge to progress from 8-9 with this roster, but I expect that the Ravens are going to find the right guy. I'm excited to see who that is. We'll continue to just talk about the options and who comes in and who stands out, who gets a second interview, and I'm excited to hear from Steve Bisciotti and or Eric DeCosta from the end of the year press conference. And we haven't heard from Steve Bisciotti yet since the John Harbaugh firing, besides the statement he put out. So really curious to see what his thoughts are on how that went down, why he made that decision, and also which direction the Ravens are headed in. The last thing I want to go over is the Ravens 2026 opponents. So they obviously did not win the AFC North, so they don't play the division winners. We already knew the other two divisions that we were playing, but we are officially playing on the road the Bengals, Browns, and Steelers, obviously division games, but we will play at Houston, at Indianapolis, at Atlanta, at Carolina, at Buffalo, and at Dallas. That is the road opponents for the Baltimore Ravens in 2026. The home games are going to be Bengals, Browns, Steelers, obviously, and then Jaguars, Titans, Saints, Buccaneers, and Chargers. That's it for this episode, guys. Just wanted to come on, go over who the Ravens have currently scheduled as head coach interviews. They're all on Zoom right now, so it's nothing too serious. I think they're just trying to get a feel for everybody, but I wanted to go over all of the names that are locked in currently and give a little bit of background on each of those. And let me know what you guys are thinking. Who do you want as the head coach and why? You know, is it defensive mind, offensive mind? Like, give me your thoughts. How are you feeling about who should leave the Baltimore Ravens in this next decade and hopefully into a dynasty? Who should that guy be? Who should be on the staff? Let me know what you guys are thinking. Appreciate you, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens flock. The Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. So I'm telling you now, it's about to go down. The podcast, the Flock Rundown. Ravens, baby. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering